You either love color purple or you hate color purple. Webster's Dictionary is going to have to go back and redefine the word snub to call it color purple. The Academy Award gave the movie Color Purple the dishonor of 11 nominations and not one win. Not one. A lot of black people don't mind that. A lot of black people don't like it because of the way they say black men were treated. Now, how many of you in here like the color purple? How many of you do not like the color purple? We'll be back in a moment. I'm Tony Brown, and we'll be back with Purple Rage. This man likes purple. Eric Estes says it portrays black life of that era accurately. However, veteran reporter Vernon Jarrett of the Chicago Sun-Times says purple is like putting poison in ice cream. But Armand White, film critic of the City Sun in New York, says it was the best movie of the year. Of course, the Academy Award didn't agree with him. To this man, Quasi Geiger, it was the worst picture of the year. His organization, the Coalition Against Black Exploitation, picketed the premiere of Purple and the Academy Awards and may have influenced the vote against Purple. What do you think about Purple?
Well, I believe that the movie The Color Purple perpetuated the myth of the imperfections of black family life, not necessarily black female and male relations. I think it went beyond that to bring in the element of violence that was rampant throughout the movie. I think that's more of a concern than black-female relations.
Where's the purple person? There's a purple person. All right, we'll see what one of the purple people has to say.
Tony, I believe that Color Purple was an ideal situation whereby it gave the American black artists an opportunity to portray a movie idiom where they could actually do anything else that anybody else could do. It's just a story of one person, not the whole world.
Quasi Geiger, you're out in Hollywood. What do you say about that?
Well, just the idea to believe that film is used as entertainment is very naive on black people's part. Film has always been used as propaganda tools by Hollywood and the powers that be. And for us to look at a film and say that it's just someone's story, we don't understand that the way that people view us around the world primarily comes from what they see on the screen. There was a Chinese guy here who doesn't even speak English that felt that Spielberg should have received the Academy Award because he felt that what was on the screen was an accurate portrayal of black life, which is absolute nonsense. Now, regardless if you want to deal with this or not, I'm telling you, this is how people view us around the world. This is I travel, and I'm telling you, and we're very naive as a people if we believe that people do not view us from what they see on the screen. That's the only thing that they have sometimes to say what we are.
Mr. Estes, you don't agree with that?
I don't. And looking at it from my point of view, how can someone say that this is how we are today when the movie was about someone about 40 years ago? I don't know how life was at the time because I was not born. I'm only 23.
That's what I'm saying. You have to listen to what I'm saying to you.
I'm going on the point from what I've heard from my grandmother and aunts and things like that.
Let's just deal with the history. Okay. It was a gross misrepresentation of what history really was in that time. That's the heyday of lynching in Georgia.
Okay, but this is the way Alice Walker wanted her book to be.
Ida B. Wells, a woman, was a person who led the fight to get laws on the books to stop lynching. And they weren't lynching women. They weren't lynching children. They were lynching black men. And when you deal with the lynching of black men, they lynched them, and for a word I hate to use, they lynched them for being uppity niggas. That meant that they were trying to progress. They were trying to do something for their families. We have to go back and start dealing and understanding our own history, which we don't. We are woefully ignorant of our own damn history. And that's our problem as a people. Okay.
I think that it's important that we all refocus on history and where we came from, but we also have to learn a very important lesson from struggling through slavery. And if I may correct you, sir, women, babies, children, and men were lynched.
Let me say predominantly the men were the ones who were lynched. I'm not saying that these things did not happen. Predominantly men were lynched. And let's go back and let's deal with some history now. Our problem is that we're always taught to forget what history has done to us. Jews say, never forget. We get something on the Jewish Holocaust 3 or 4 times a year. The minute we begin to say what really happened to us, and America has not dealt with the damage that they did to us psychologically for over 400 years. I mean, they had breeding farms, literally, where they would make me have sex with my wife, my mother, my daughter, or my sister, to sell the child. If you have someone and you create that kind of brutality and a mental dependency on the white master, and for 400 years you do that to a person, and then you say he's free, they didn't give us psychiatrists. We haven't dealt with what has happened in our minds right now. We have not dealt with that, and we are still being affected by it because we watch the brutality that men do. We're not saying it doesn't happen.
Are you saying that
it doesn't happen?
Well, what does purple have to do with that history?
What we're saying is that when you deal with the color purple, it takes it completely out of context. It makes as if I, as a man, that's my natural nature. And I say, I speak from experience. I come from a very abusive father. And I said, Pop, I love you dearly, but he was extremely abusive man to my mother and myself. And growing to understand what had happened to him, there's some incidents that made me begin to understand what it was like for a black man to exist in America, that made me reshape and restructure my thinking patterns about brutality that men do.
You think black men are traditionally brutal?
No, I think that's a condition. That's a condition.
You think your father was an exception?
No.
In that respect?
I don't think my father was an exception. I think that...
I mean, in terms of being abusive?
No, I think he was an exception. Because basically men are not abusive. You know.
I think that the black experience is different for so many blacks. Some of them have gone through what you have. Perhaps that's why you felt particularly sensitive about this movie.
Purple?
I saw the movie. I read the book.
Were there any positive black men in it?
They all ended up being positive. They learned. They start out with weaknesses.
How?
Parade magazine said it was a story of black women and no account black men.
The man did not even get a chance to explain what made him change. It was all like some divine thing that came down. That's not growth.
I don't think there was anything divine in the movie. But to get back to my point, in terms of learning lessons from struggling through slavery, it is important at this stage of development for Black America to understand exactly where we are. If we, at this point in time, start Xing off black leaders for not being perfect, Xing off black movies for not being perfect, throwing out black books that have good information that we have to know about because they don't say what we all, and I don't know how all is defined.
This is not a black movie. Remember, this is not a black movie. Okay? This is not a black movie. It's not a black movie.
What do you think?
Well, I thought the movie was great. I feel that it's a certain part that was blown up so that we can see. A lot of people, true, they're ignorant out there. I'm only 22 years old, but I have gone through a lot. I thought the movie was great because it did take an unpleasant part and it brought it out so that people can see. But that's to deal with roots and everything else. We don't want to see that again. No, but how are we going to know about it? How are we going to deal with it? How are those people out there going to deal with it unless they're exposed to it? Yeah, they were exposed. They didn't like it. I liked it for that it did bring it out. I did see it. A lot of people I said didn't see it. They didn't like it. But it's something now that they can deal with.
What did it bring out? If you're talking about it made you, it was a great film as far as how it was set up.
Tell them what it brought out.
It made you very emotional. It made you laugh. It made you cry.
You said your dad was abusive to you,
sure.
but you didn't know why. But there were certain things that made you find out why.
That's right.
White people are abusive to us.
Right.
But there were no white men in the film.
Okay, black people are abusive to other black people.
Right.
I'm not from the Deep South, but my family is, okay? And I can see where they got their attitude from. If, that movie brings out some truth, it may be blown up a bit. I think it brings out certain points that we can deal with and learn. That's why they are what,
what were the truths that you saw?
What do you think?
I think a tragedy is exhibited right here today. The fact that some young black people, ranging from this latest age, 22, 28, 30s, can believe that brought out historical truth. That movie was an historical lie on black history. One of the great tricks that Hollywood played on us in that movie, it gave a semblance of it being a sort of mini-doc, they call it. They flashed dates on the screen, 1909, 1914, like this was really, regardless of what the authors meant, a piece of black history. Black people didn't survive the terror that was in existence in 1909 and 1900 by seeing what we saw on the movies Black love is a theme in history that has been ignored by Hollywood, and now here are some black young people saying it brought out the other. I can tell you, as a person here who knew some of the folk who survived that period, including my ex-slave grandmother, that black men were not the rapist. You see more of that today. What urbanization has done to
But
black
you didn't
men.
see any white rapists
If
in
you
Color
go,
Purple,
if you
did you?
go, no, wait, let me finish. Something else. That
Only
is
black men were
very
raping black
important.
women, weren't they?
I raised this question to all of you. If you don't think that was a damaging film to the general impression of black people, if it had been a story of Israel, would the Jews have permitted a movie to be made where every single male character was either a rapist or an incest perpetrator or a beast or even dumb? The man couldn't even fix the roof on his own house. He kept falling through. When it rained in his little business, you couldn't even run a business.
Armand White says Steven Spielberg is the greatest director that ever lived, and Steven Spielberg did us a favor by doing that movie. Is that what you said,
Not
Mr.
quite,
White?
not quite. I would say he's the greatest director working in Hollywood today. I think we're missing a point about The Color Purple, and I'd like to say what that point is by picking up on one thing Mr. Garrett said, which is never forget. Never forget the history that black people have in movies. The history of black people in movies is stereotyped, has been degrading. We are a part of history now. I think with The Color Purple, we're at a turning point in Hollywood history, wherein finally, at long last, we're getting a picture of black people that is positive, that's wonderful, that's rich.
What was positive about that?
You talked about black love. I think 99% of the people who see The Color Purple come away with an impression of great love. The movie is suffused with love and warm feeling.
Between whom?
All through it. But wait a minute. There's more to say about it. But I'd also like to say, you mentioned about a tragedy today. I think one tragedy, is that there is no woman on this panel, because an important issue about The Color Purple is that it's a fiction, that it's a narrative, it's a fable, it's a fantasy, but more specifically, it's a feminist fantasy. And it's not simply a movie of black social history. It's particularly a history of black women and the oppression of women, more so about the oppression of women.
Sir, regardless of what intellectuals may want to read into that movie is going to be seen by tens and hundreds of millions of people who will never read a book. Let me finish my statement. Who will never read a book, who will rarely come in contact with black people. Let me give you one example. The night before last, I'm on the board of trustees of a pretty important Midwestern, predominantly white university. We had a dinner with some of the individuals on that board last night, and I was the only one at the table who knew that it was illegal to teach black people to read during slavery. White ignorance about us is abysmal.
Mr. White,
we are being educated today by movies, by the newspapers, and by television, where the only fathers you see are white fathers adopting black children.
I want to buttress onto this. The whole fact that, let me say something, at Lockheed, which is a big military complex that builds weapons, they have what they call Black History Month. Now, we only get to talk about ourselves once a month in a year. And they had one of the bigwigs, one of the directors there, they had a black guest to come to speak. And before he spoke, this white gentleman got up, who was one of the directors, and said that he felt that The Color Purple was the best and the greatest movie he'd ever seen, that all people should go out and see it because it gave an accurate depiction of how blacks were. And if you go see the film, you could better understand your colleagues.
Wasn't the movie essentially produced for a white audience?
Yes. Now you have to deal with the fact that
and getting back to Mr. White's statement that Hollywood was getting ready to make positive movies. Are you aware that Hollywood is now preparing to produce Uncle Tom's Cabin?
Now let me tell you, I was at the blacks. Let me say this.
That native son, where you have another black brute killing a white woman.
I was at the Screen Actors Guild.
We have opened the door
3 weeks
for them
ago
to do what they want to anytime they feel like it, because you approve and are willing to help finance.
Let me finish this. I was at the Screen Actors Guild 3 weeks ago, and they were discussing racism in the industry, and they're very concerned about it. Paul Winfield was there. He gets up and says that I made a statement. He got up and said that he disagreed with what I had to say because he felt that the movie was about growth, and I challenged him on what growth. And then he said, well, anyway, I've been offered the part of Uncle Tom. And I said, and he said he didn't know if he would accept it or not. He didn't even deal with the fact that it was something insulting, but he just said that he didn't know, he wasn't sure if he was going to accept it or not. They're going to remake Uncle Tom's Cabin. We felt in our premise, because this is not a movie that we dealt with after it came out. We've been dealing with this since March, that it was barometer on how they were going to respond to us based on how we responded to this movie.
Well, they've made a lot of money. Probably they're going to make $100 million pretty soon.
I want to say that I saw The Color Purple. I read the book, and I enjoyed the movie. And I didn't take it to be commentary on the black race or black history, but I do know that much of what happened in that movie did really happen. And I worked with teenage girls, and I did not know about incest in black families.
You're talking about today.
No, but I'm talking about when they were doing role plays. Let me finish, Mr. Jared. They were doing role plays for senior citizens in the black community. And many of those women my grandmother's age were saying, "You told my story. That really happened." And in my family, I would never have believed anything like that. Here's another point, Tony. Yeah. It gave black actors and black actresses jobs that they would not have gotten.
That's too bad. Wait. I want to ask you a question. Nobody is denying that there are not some black men who've raped their daughter.
That's right.
But are we saying that is typical of black families?
Well, when are we going to see a movie that is typical?
When are black men going to write it? This is the way Alice
Walker
wanted her book to be. Alice Walker wrote this book
minute.
The way she wanted it to be. If you want a book about positive black men got to get out and write a book. Make it a movie.
Is it a book about positive black men?
Tony, do you see what we have here?
This is her good piece of
fiction. Is it a book about positive black men?
You have a young black man saying to us exactly what General Motors used to say to us. If you want a job in a car industry, go build your own auto plants. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I should not be ashamed of myself. Alice Walker.
Go ahead.
Alice Walker wrote a book the way she wanted.
Okay, I'd like to thank the brother Quasi. I understand that because of your efforts in California and picketing, there were parts about The Color Purple that were removed, parts that were very, very severe.
Let me give you an example.
Let me finish and they can give us the examples. We need to realize that Hollywood has no interest in entertaining black people. This was not about entertainment. This was about politicizing people.
Right.
It was about making people feel bad about themselves. We need to realize that there has been no white film where you've heard two words spoken or juxtaposed together, ugly and white. But yet we heard terms about our race being juxtaposed with the word ugly 3 and 4 times. I took offense to that. And I think we need to know that as young people, the audience was 16 to 26-year-olds. Those are the most people who go to the movies. And to hear young people say, I enjoyed that, I'm fearful about what's going to happen to the race. It's frightening.
Okay, when you deal with the fact that in the 50s we tried to get over the idea of being.
Do you believe that a movie taken 35 years after freedom for the Jews in Israel would ever be made? This movie started at the turn of the century. We hadn't been free but 35 years. Do you believe a movie about Jewish life or about Polish Catholic life under communist Poland, or even about the Northern Ireland's men's struggle there would ever be made where every single male character was a fiend or a dog or dumb? It would never be made, and it would never have the great reviews that it has been given by the white reviewers of this country and some misled black
I suspect that they gave it 11 Academy Awards so that you would go and see it.
Nominations.
They nominated it. They nominated it so that you would help finance your own degradation. And the fact that when you complain that you're not viewed right, other people around the world who went and saw this would say that black people love this, so that must be them.
You will give them Uncle Tom's Cabin.
And so we'll give them something else. And I'm saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's a reality.
Okay, I'd like to say something. I'd like to say something.
Reactions to a film as a normal reaction.
That's not crackpot.
I think that one thing that everybody here is forgetting. Remember what happened to us in the films of the 60s and the 70s? Superfly. I got a pamphlet here. Black exploitation films. And if you don't think that images that come out of Hollywood have an impact on our young folks, just think about how many young brothers began to wear the Superfly hairdo, the high heel shoes, the priest look. And we are still under siege from what happened to our communities.
What effect will purple have?
Oh, God. We're going to have sisters turn into other sisters for comfort, physically and mentally. We are going to, and it's happening. It's happening. Okay. It is happening. The one thing that I remember about the promotion of Purple is that scene where Suge said, "You show is ugly." This sister with her strong African features,
That's
you
right.
know, brothers and sisters
That's right.
for 20, 30 years have been trying to turn around that standard of beauty in our community, and in a split
Flash
second,
of an eye has been changed back.
Didn't it hurt when the black hair was combed?
That's right. Let me
Yes.
see what
I
they
mean,
did in the film.
and-
Let me
Wait a
finish.
minute
What
now.
they did in the film.
This is-
What they did in the film is that at the
Sir,
beginning
was
of the
that- yes,
film,
any
they
black
show.
girl
Wait a
who's
minute.
been called
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
embarrassed
Wait a
by
minute.
mother,
Wait a minute.
it
They
hurts.
show a little black.
That's the
That's not
absolute
every kid. That's nonsense.
Yeah, if their hair is
Now
nappy,
you
it
take.
hurts. The comb can't get
Are you
nappy
kidding?
hair.
That's
But
nonsense.
that's a silly
Then you have a
silly thing to
you have a
argue.
situation
An
where you have a
important thing- I
child.
think we're forgetting something that's
Okay.
very important here.
Just a moment. Just a moment. Right here.
I think that this time for a black movie, love movie,
That's right.
if you look at how Sunman couldn't come out, how Huggy Beans couldn't come out, there's a lot of propaganda about us.
That's right.
And against us.
That's right.
And we must start to do things on our own. We must start having our own General Motors cars, and we must start funding. You have to start having a step. I liked Color Purple only because it set us enraged.
That's right.
It set us what?
Enraged.
It made us begin
It
to
upset
be-
us.
It upset us.
Let me say this.
That's why.
Let me finish something. Let me finish something. Look,
Okay.
now, when you start dealing with the thing about combing your hair, there's a whole lot of things that were set up in the movie to set us up. And I say, first they showed you with the woman trying to comb their sister's hair. She's hollering. Later on in the film, you have an argument between Mr. and Celie, where Mr. calls her nappy-haired, black, and ugly. Again, trying to connotate things that are naturally us as having something to do with being wrong. And I'm saying, wait a minute. I'm saying, irregardless if that's what we do, we have to change that concept about ourselves. And a picture that does not give any context to it, or consequences for anybody's actions in the film, is extremely damaging to our kids. Because remember this, women are the teachers of all men. The closest person that you have to you as a man is my mother. And any man in here would say the same thing. So if something happens to me, women have to be responsible for some of that bad behavior that I have, because I got some of that by the way that you responded to me as a kid and the way that you respond to other men around me as a kid.
I think that's a
Tony,
naive
there's
reaction
one-
to the film.
there's one-
I would like to
there's-
say something too. You're kind of monopolizing the conversation here. That's a
I
very
hope you
naive
make it,
reaction.
Can you make it brief?
I'll try to.
Go ahead.
That's a very naive reaction to the film. Yes, there are things that happen on one hand, but there are things that happen in the movie on the other hand. On the other hand, you have the close-up of Whoopi Goldberg smiling, which is made to accept herself. That's a beautiful moment. You have Whoopi Goldberg reunited with her sister. The family reunited. That's a beautiful
We're
moment.
glad you're here to tell us.
You have, well,
Because if you saw the film,
obviously
they
everyone
didn't
forgot.
accompany it with good words, did they?
Obviously,
I
everyone's
mean, you'd have to be a
forgotten. It is
film
there.
critic like yourself to figure it out. And maybe that's one of the problems.
No, wait a minute.
Yes,
There's
Bert.
the essential
Yeah.
point I think
Something
people
else.
are missing is that, wait a minute. Black people are here in
Now,
America.
sir, we have to move on to somebody else. Go ahead.
Tony, there's something else that I hope every black viewer of this program understands. That we have to provide the philosophical outlook and interpret our being ourselves and not leave it to anybody else. Because there is something latently insidious about a certain white frame of mind that even some of my close white friends are victimized by, and they don't know it. They resent deep down inside the protests that we continue to do. And they are enjoying seeing us against each other. That's why Soldier's Story, a great play,
right.
but it's two black people being their own worst enemies.
Okay, just one
The
moment.
Color Purple, we were our own worst enemies. Colored Girls, our own
And that's
worst
what I
enemies.
see as a controversy as Color Purple. It has divided us against
That's right,
ourselves.
that's right.
When we can say, as our sisters say, we can use the Color Purple as a springboard
Agreed.
to come together. There were some negative parts in Color Purple. There were some positive parts in Color Purple. But that is what life is. There's some negative and there's some positive. It is up to us now to unite. That was a movie, that was entertainment, that was something that was put on celluloid film to show to the world. We have to, those who agree with the positive side, we have to manifest that to make those other people who don't see those, to bring that forward. Those who see the negative parts, then we will dedicate and commit ourselves to overcoming and eradicating
But who's
those
in control of
stereotypes.
Hollywood? Who decides what films are made?
Well, then
We don't decide, do we?
we decide by what we go see, what
That's
we
right.
support, and our reactions to it.
But we must love Purple because we've given it about $100 million.
Not only us. I saw the movie
Majority.
twice. I saw it once.
Oh,
in
you gave it $12.
No, I saw it once in a predominant white audience, and with the predominant white audience, as they said, ooh, and ah. And when I saw it again in a predominant black audience, the parts that were reality and realistic, they got applause.
You know,
the
some of
part
the best
that wasn't.
some of the best films ever made were movies that were made by Hitler's movie makers. And they took Hitler and they took Germany with movies. You can make people cry. It doesn't mean you're telling the truth because you make people cry in a movie.
Tony, listen to what one of the most popular reviewers said to those people who said it was just entertainment. Now, this is Gene Siskel, who's seen on this channel and everywhere else. He said this movie takes an incredibly strong stand against the way black men treat black women. Cruel is too kind a word to describe their behavior. The principal black men in The Color Purple use their women, both wives and daughters, as sexual chattel. That is a message that certain of our friends want to get over on us.
Mr. White,
we're too dumb to see it. We're crazy.
I want to ask Mr. White a question.
Yes.
In a recent Parade magazine supplement, millions and millions of copies, the description for the Academy Award movies under Purple said black women and their, quote, no account black men. That doesn't bother you at all, does it?
It bothers me about Parade magazine, not about the movie. I can't legislate how stupid people read that film. I think it's a smart
are
film.
all people stupid who don't see it from the standpoint as you do from a great movie made by a great director named
Maybe I
Steven
shouldn't say
Spielberg?
stupid, but I would say uninformed and naive and narrow.
You're uninformed about your own history.
No. Wait a minute. I would like to say something. I would like to say something here.
You might as well be white.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That comes from
I think what I'd like
comes from a good role model.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to say about this is this: that whenever a race of people like ourselves could take one movie like that, let anybody make a movie, and in that movie, you're saying that these people are personifying you, and these people could either separate you or bring you together. I think we ought to take a toll ourselves and find out where we are going.
That's right. Amen. Sam.
I'd like to say that I enjoyed the movie very much, but on the whole, if we had a lot of different movies showing different parts of black life, then it wouldn't be so controversial.
Right.
But there are not enough images. There are not enough. I cried a lot. I came out on Hollywood Boulevard. I didn't even realize what I was. I was so emotionally messed up.
That's what the deal is.
I'm sorry we don't have much time, and I'd like to thank you. I know all of us have a lot of strong feelings about The Color Purple, but you've heard a lot of different points of view, and I'm sure you've made yours known. And I'm sure we still disagree, but thank my panel for coming. Thank you very much.
I thought it was good to show that television show. I actually miss this part of like television talk show hosts. I don't know if podcasts are supposed to be the substitute, but I feel like sometimes people aren't very researched or thought out or respect boundaries. But either way, I liked this episode. So now I'm going to give my thoughts. So I think his name was Garrett, who had said that only black men were lynched. And I'm so happy that a woman corrected him because he dismissed black women and children who were also lynched, which is unfortunately typical for a lot of black men who are often race first and or self-centered. Color Purple, in my opinion, wasn't completely taken out of context, but it did represent a demographic of black women who were abused. I understand that all black men are not toxic. Yeah, we should not dismiss those who are. I disagree that there were positive black men in The Color Purple. I don't remember seeing any positive black male, which I think was a gross generalization. I do also agree with Vernon, who said that black love isn't often depicted in Hollywood. But I do think it's asinine to think that black men were not assaulting black women. I liked Armand's quote saying that history has been stereotyped and degraded. The only love that I remember even seeing in that movie was sisterhood. Though the host, he did acknowledge the women in the audience, it probably wouldn't have flowed the same if those women were on the panel. Because even when those women were speaking and giving their opinion, they were cut off, they were over-talked, and they had to literally say, let me finish my statement. And yeah, that was seen on stage to a degree. Like, people kept talking, but no one tried to overpower them with their voice. Or, there was a low-key, some begging, like, brother, stop. He was reaching out to the other man. I do agree that revisionist history is important to acknowledge. That's why I also think it's important to hear from different perspectives and just learn your history in general. My grandmother is 80 years old, and when I was growing up, she taught me a lot about like racial pride and womanhood simultaneously. And I really feel bad that sometimes her memory fades, but she has acknowledged how someone attempted to assault her when she was a child. And unfortunately, that someone was an older black man. And I just think it's obvious that when you're around people of the same demographic, that good things can happen to you, bad things can happen to you. And unfortunately, A lot of times, Black crimes are magnified, or you might have this like bias that, oh, well, since Black men or Black women have always hurt me, that Black men or Black women are like this. And unfortunately, a lot of people who have dominance, no matter what the race are, they often do misuse it. So that's pretty much what I think about this show. These are my thoughts, and my thoughts are my own. What do you think down below? Please be respectful, and thank you for listening to Books and Looks TV.